Hi, my name is Leslie Vernick, and I'm the author of a brand new book called The Emotionally Destructive Marriage: How to Find Your Voice and Reclaim Your Hope. Each week I'm posting short videos of some teaching as a sneak preview into the book. Today I'm talking about trying harder. You know, when Christian women go to counselors and they're in a destructive marriage, the advice they often receive is simply try harder. Try harder to make your marriage work. Try harder to work on yourself. Try harder to love your husband. Be more respectful. Be more submissive. Be more caring and more attentive. Try harder to love him more. Now, in some marriages, this might be really good counsel. When one person starts to try harder, it often begets a reciprocal response in the other person, and he begins to try harder too. Amends are made, and the relationship is repaired. And this is a good start when the marriage is on stall. Someone needs to get the ball rolling, and it might as well be you. Otherwise, if repairs are not made, a marriage will soon deteriorate and become worse. However, in certain kinds of marriages, in emotionally destructive marriages, trying harder in the traditional wifely way is not a good idea and can actually make your marriage worse. Briefly, let me explain why in some marriages trying harder to accommodate your spouse, to do what he wants and what he needs, to be more compliant and more submissive to what he says, actually becomes more destructive, not only to you, but also to him and to your marriage. The primary reason is it feeds a fundamental lie that all of us struggle with. And the lie is, it's all about me. You see, in destructive marriages, a man does not want to be married to a real woman who has her own feelings, her own needs, and her own brokenness. Instead, he wants a fantasy wife. He wants a blow-up doll wife that continues to bounce back with a smile when he knocks her down. He wants a wife that always agrees, always acts nice, always smiles, and thinks he's wonderful all of the time, no matter what he does or how he behaves. He wants a wife that wants to have sex with him whenever he's in the mood, regardless of how he's treated her. He wants a wife that's never upset with him, never disagrees with him, never challenges him, and never disappoints him. He wants a wife that grants him amnesty whenever he messes up, and she'll never mention it again. And the more a woman colludes with her husband's idea that he's entitled to a fantasy wife, the more firmly entrenched this lie becomes. Hear me. No matter how much you try, you will never measure up to his idea of fantasy wife, because you too are a fallible human being. You see, a real wife will disappoint her husband sometimes. A real wife won't always be able to meet his every need. A real wife also will reflect to her husband her own pain when he hurts her, as well as God's wisdom when she sees him making a foolish decision. In a healthy marriage, where both individuals are allowed to be themselves, couples must learn how to handle disagreements, differences, and conflicts through mutual compromise, mutual caring, and mutual submission. And sacrifice and service are mutually practiced in order to love one another in godly ways. And when we fail, as we always will because we're human, we see the pain in our partner's eyes. And with God's help, we make the necessary changes so that damages are repaired and love continues to grow. But in an emotionally destructive marriage, when real wife and fantasy wife collide, it is never pretty. If you're watching this video today, it's very important that you gain a vision for God's role as your husband's helpmate. According to the Bible, a helpmate is not an enabler, but rather an easer. The Hebrew translation is a strong warrior. It means as your husband's helpmate, you will learn to fight in God's way to bring about your husband's good. So think with me for a minute. What would you say, or what would you think God would say, is your husband's deepest or biggest needs right now? Is it to continue to prop him up, to indulge his self-centeredness and his self-deception? Or does he need something from you that is far more radical and risky? I encourage you to prayerfully and humbly ask God how you can best biblically love your husband. It may be to stop indulging his selfish behavior and speak the truth in love. It may be to reflect back to him the pain his behaviors have on you and your children. It may be to set boundaries against his misuse of power under the guise of headship so that he doesn't remain so self-deceived. Or it may be exposing some of his sins to the leadership of your church so that they can stand with you to help you and help your husband get a good look at his behavior from God's perspective and hopefully repent. And it may even mean calling the police if you need to, pressing charges, and sometimes separation. Friend, that kind of love is risky. It's redemptive and sacrificial, as you don't know what his response will be. But if he wakes up and repents of his demand for a fantasy wife, that would be a positive change for you, for him, and for your marriage. Thanks for stopping by. Next week, I'm going to talk about a very touchy subject. Does God care more about your husband's sexual needs than your need for love and safety? Until then, take care and God bless.